Tyrone are back in action this weekend, and after taking a heavy spanking against Galway last weekend, there's no way they'll want to repeat the dose this weekend against Dublin. So no tougher team to meet. Joe, first of all, if you can, Joe McMahon, if you can just look at that game against Galway, what do you think happened? Galway putting up 225.
Yeah, I think, well, Tyrone were still in the game with about 10-15 minutes to go. Mark Bradley had got a point to make 3 in it, and then following that, straight away Galway went up the pitch and won themselves a penalty, and they kicked on from that. But that score, coupled with the McShane injury, I think that knocked the stuffing out of Tyrone. A lot of the lads seem to have seen what happened and unnerved them, and understandably so. Maybe it was an opportunity for the lads to pull in together and work out a way forward, because it's not nice seeing one of your teammates going through an injury like that. And Galway punished any mistakes that Tyrone made. Tyrone got the short kick out. Niall Morgan done very well, considering they were down to 13 men. He did very well to still manage to find the short kick out. And as soon as Tyrone got inside the Galway 45, they seemed to run out of ideas. They had run out of options. They took the wrong option, trying to force the passes, maybe the wrong shot option. And Galway punished them straight away with one kick. They opened up essentially they broke about 30, 40, 50 metres where there was a lot of Tyrone players. You could have thrown a blanket over them as they joined the attack, and it was a lot of 3v2. And it found it very difficult for McNamee and co to try and stop any scores from happening.
And with the manner of it, the fact that it was such a heavy scoreline, and Tyrone had won 2 of the first 3 games, so everything was looking good. But just to now all of a sudden, you're still 2 points off the top, and but at the same time 1 point off going into the relegation zone. Are you at all concerned about the manner of that, and just even the scoring difference is now minus 17?
Well, let's hope it's not a factor, and Tyrone get enough points in the last number of games. And Tyrone have shown glimpses of good play coming against Meath, and also find themselves coming up against Monaghan. And although Monaghan had beaten them that day, Peter Hart himself was not long back from honeymoon, fellas coming back from injuries, and the difficulty of the league is getting those consistencies and getting consistency in performance, consistency in the team selection, and it all adds up. And that, coupled with playing top quality teams week in, week out, it's pretty much a level playing field, and you need to be at the top of your game to be able to perform and get the results that are needed. And that's something that Tyrone have found difficult, is to being able to play for long periods. And looking at the Kerry game, some would say they dogged that result out, and the conditions were difficult to play in, but they still got the scores on the board when it mattered. And McRory, with that exceptional sideline ball, Niall Morgan from place kicks, playing on their home turf certainly helped them from that point of view. But listen, I think from a Tyrone perspective, certainly against Galway, they'll have to lick their wounds, and they did take quite a hammering. But the big thing is that there's only 2 points were conceded on the league table. Yes, it might make a difference in the scoreboard, but you would hope Tyrone would finish strong as they have done in previous seasons in the league, and no better game to set themselves again than Dublin this weekend.
Do you think too much was made of the incident with David Clifford? And number one, is it because Clifford is such a big name and you want to protect players like that? Or was part of it just any reason to hammer Tyrone, and the idea that Tyrone are the most cynical team of the lot?
Well, it seems to be, anyway, from a Tyrone perspective, that if there's any controversy out there, Tyrone seem to be highlighted more so than other teams, and I don't think it'll affect the lads too much. And any manager worth their salt or coach worth their salt will certainly be keeping an eye and be mindful of opposition quality players, and that was something maybe Tyrone looked at and exploited, and teams have done that themselves in the past, and it's nothing new to the game either. Maybe with social media nowadays, that there's more exposure there of what's going on in the game. than would have been from maybe when I started out playing for Tyrone back in 2004. There's a lot of that would have went on without a doubt, but from that point of view, it's difficult for players, I suppose, that playing at that level and knowing that they're going to be coming up against a team like Tyrone, a team like Dublin. If you're a top quality forward, that you're going to be targeted, and it's up to your teammates to look out for you, and it's up to you as a player to be able to step up and count. And top quality players and forwards will always, most of the time, come out on top.
I see at times Mickey Hart getting, well, not targeted, but people saying that he sends defenders out specifically to go, target lads, try and get them sent off, that type of thing. Any truth in that?
No, definitely not. I wouldn't agree with that statement or statements at all. If you're ever asked to do a job for Tyrone, you go out, you pull on the jersey, and you try your best for the team. And listen, there's players and been well known over the years that have played for Tyrone and play currently for other teams that do play in the age, and that's something that needs to be brought to the game, and has been happening for a long time as well. So it's nothing new. As I said to you before, it's probably more exposure through social media, through all those outlets, and people can tend to comment it more and feel they want to voice their own opinion on it. And sometimes from a player's point of view, whilst playing on the edge is part of your game, and people on social media tend to highlight players and highlight them for name calling and expose. I think that's unfair, and they would need to take the blinkers off, because it happens in their own county as well. So I would be mindful of what we're saying on social media.
When Cathal McShane went down with the injury, and when you subsequently found out later on that we're looking at a 5-month type injury, which is going to push us into, well, July anyway, and then probably needs time to get up to speed if Tyrone are still in the championship at that stage, is there kind of a feeling of season over in terms of challenging for an All-Ireland title, considering you're trying to bridge a gap with that Kerry team, of course, but certainly that Dublin team?
Well, from Cahill's own point of view, it's been a real roller coaster from him this season. I suppose coming off the back of last season, been top scorer, the marquee forward in Ireland, and winning himself a deserved All-Star. And and then, as we know, and been well highlighted, that he had trials for the Aussie rules and had the opportunity to go, but he chose to stay at home, and that was his decision, and full credit for him. And it's just funny how things work out sometimes, and I'm sure it's been discussed at many's a dinner table how it's worked out for Cathal and picking up the injury. But the player that Cathal is, I'm sure he'll work hard to get himself back into that contention again to be playing for Tyrone, and wish him best of luck with his recovery. But if you're looking at Cathal last year with the scores that he was getting, he was certainly a great outlet for Tyrone, and Mickey, it's going to be hard to find a replacement, and that's not to say that we don't have good forwards in there. It's probably highlighting the fact of how good Cathal was, and it brought another dimension to the Tyrone attack, that we were able to maybe carry less of the ball through the hands and being able to attack more with a long ball, and Cathal either winning it in the first phase or other players coming off and winning off the break. And I think that other players now, the likes of McRory, have been stepping up during the league. You have Ronan O'Neill, Mark Bradley. There's talk of Conor McKenna coming back. I'm not sure if there's any truth in that, but certainly be a welcome addition to the Tyrone team. And sometimes in situations like this where one of your key players get injured, it's an opportunity for other boys to step up and answer any questions that have been laid. And Mickey will certainly put that to the players, and it'll be up to themselves as a group to reset for the weekend and look beyond into the championship season.
You would have been Cahill's teammate for a couple of years there until you retired. Did you see him becoming a full forward?
I remember watching Cathal for the under-21s, and he was a player that he was in around midfield, half forward, and I really enjoyed Cathal playing, because one thing that we'd always seen in his performance was his work rate. And maybe he mightn't have, when he broke into the seniors, people felt that maybe he wouldn't have had the elegance maybe of some other types of players there that have come before. And Cathal, in his own right, is strong, physical, and his movement. If I was to talk to any young player coming up now, I would encourage them to go and stand in behind the goals and watch Cathal McShane's movement off the ball and how he's able to drag defenders, never stops moving, and his ability then to win the ball, turn, take his man on, all those attributes that he possesses is why he was the top scorer last year. And he's a great lad off the pitch, very level-headed, and he deserves anything good that comes his way, and he will certainly be a big loss to Tyrone this season.
Has anyone particularly impressed you that's played this year in any position on the field for Tyrone?
Yeah, well, I suppose if you're looking, Darren McRory has maybe had a bit of time out away from Tyrone, and then Mickey he performed well in the league football and championship football for Eden Dork, and he brought him back in, and he's beginning to show well for the team again. Defensively, you've Liam Rafferty, who's come in. He goes to St Mary's, good type marker as well, and isn't afraid to get himself up the pitch. And I think it's an opportunity for these lads to come in and get a chance for Tyrone, because presently you have players that have been out injured, or there's niggles there, or suspensions, black yards, and that's the beauty of having a large panel, that these fellas are able to come in and show their worth. And if the likes of Brian Kennedy there too, has been there a couple of years, and he's starting to really show himself. So I think there's good potential, certainly from the younger players, and coming from the 20s as well, some of the lads, and a promising future for Tyrone. But will not just depend too much on the future. We want to look now and hope that they have another strong season this year and push on beyond the semi-finals.
So I'll come to the clash this weekend against Dublin, but do you have any memories that stick out in particular with your clashes with Dublin? Of course, you kind of sent them running for the hills a few times during the noughties anyway, but you must have a couple of highlights of big games against them.
Yeah, I think as a player, you always enjoyed playing Dublin, no matter the occasion, whether it was the league or the championship. And maybe they weren't the team, or they certainly aren't the team weren't the team back then as they are now. But that didn't take away from everything that come along with it, the supporters, the atmosphere down in Croke Park. And there was no better feeling than running out into that wall of sound, coming out of the tunnel and running across the pitch. And it was just, it brings chills thinking back about it, because it was just an amazing experience. And I always do share with people that I could be standing 10 metres away shouting and roaring at the top of my voice to one of my teammates, and they won't be able to hear because of the roar from the hill and throughout the whole of the stand. And that experience of playing in front of that crowd against the Dubs, I think it brought the best out of Tyrone on a lot of occasions, and that proved it. And highlights for myself personally would have been certainly 08, playing against them in the quarter final, where nobody gave us a chance. I remember looking out a Carton House window when the rain was pelting down, and the question was, would the game have been going ahead? And with no pressure going into the game, everybody thought Dublin are sure to go on and progress to the semi-final, and Tyrone coming through the back door had no chance. And that just played into our hands, and we rose to the occasion, and scoring the goal that day was a special memory for myself. And I have the jersey framed in the house to remember that, because there's not many goals go past Stephen Cluxton, and I certainly have to take that from memory. But a lot of good times against Dublin, but then sort of towards 2011, 2012 onwards, they started to get the upper hand and get the better of Tyrone, and the good days against Dublin were in the past.
Were you the day of the Muggsy's goal, Owen Mulligan's goal, and the famous commentary from Dara? What's his name again?
Yeah.
You know the guy I'm talking about. Yeah. Dara Maloney. Jesus, I can't believe I had such a brain fart. But what's your memories of that goal?
It was those two games were just unbelievable. I mean, the first day had come on against Kieran Whelan. Kieran Whelan was dominating midfield at the time, and I was asked to go in and just do a job, and thankfully things come off for us, and we were able to get ourselves into the game. But Mulligan's goal, I think I'd come off Stevie O'Neill looking for a pass off the left shoulder, and Stevie, being the forward that he is and the head up football, he just seen Muggsy's run, clipped it inside of the 45, and it was just the roar got louder and louder as Muggsy got further and further towards the Dublin goal, and obviously it's well played at this stage, but every time you see it, it's amazing how he was able to compose himself, to sell those dummies and finish the way he did. And it kick-started Muggsy's season and it kick-started our season, because up to that I don't think Muggsy, as he would certainly have said it himself in the past, he wasn't at the level that he had been. And it just inspired him, inspired the team. I think he went on to win an All-Star possibly that year, and obviously the rest is history in terms of Tyrone winning the All-Ireland. But that was a magical season, winning 10 games, or playing in 10 games, 10 steps to glory, as portrayed in the DVD, but special times.
Do you, when you look back at that rivalry with Dublin now, did you think of them as sort of like fancy Dan's soft lads who wouldn't like it when it was put up to them? Obviously the team in the last 10 years, you couldn't say that about them, but you must have kind of had that feeling and had those discussions in the dressing room.
Yeah, well, that would have been something that came up, and because they were coming from the city, they were thought as the city slickers, and there was a softness to them. And coming from Tyrone, we probably coming from the north with a bit of a chip on our shoulder, and we felt we could certainly do a job in Dublin, and not only Dublin, on any team. We never feared anybody, because I think that basically the quality of the players that we had, we knew looking around the squad that any player starting or any player coming in were just as good as each other. And at the foundation of all of that was the hard work that we were prepared to put in to get the results. And we definitely targeted Dublin because we felt there were weaknesses there, and that certainly has come to pass.
And do you think that the bridge can be, or the divide can be bridged with Dublin at the moment? I mean, 5 in a row champions, but Dessie Farrell has come in, and you're talking about 10 points behind against Monaghan. I don't think that ever happened under Jim Gavin. They came back brilliantly against Kerry. 5 points down on Monaghan, came back. So do you look at the powers of recovery, or do you think it's very untypical of these Dublin players to ever be in those holes in the first place?
Yeah, as you say, I think it's well documented from Dessie Farrell about the slow starts that they're having at this stage. But that's one area of the game, and certainly if they address that, there's other areas of the game that are continuing to progress and get stronger, and it doesn't bode well for the rest of the teams in Ireland. And the quality's there, certainly, and it's a habit that they have, as winning, and it's a good habit, and it's a habit that they're in. And with the 2 draws and the 2 wins, they're still undefeated. And they haven't played overly well. They've played in phases and have punished teams during those phases. And I think a bit like Tyrone, if they're looking for that consistency and they get that consistency, they'll certainly hurt teams more. They're the top team, and deservedly so. They have all the top marquee players. And I think beneath all that quality, as I mentioned, similarities with their own team, they have the quality players, but they have the work rate to match it. And they're excellent at being able to adapt to their opposition, and however they set up. If a team goes defensively, they're quite happy to hold possession, pick that off, get runners coming off the wings, stretch the defences, and equally, if they're prepared to go man to man, they will do that. And one thing I have been impressed with Dublin over the years is their ability, when they go a man down or their backs are to the wall, how they respond to that. They're not happy with sitting off. What they do is they like to push up, they pressurise teams, they don't allow them out easy. And it takes a lot of nerve and guts and belief and trust to be able to do that as a team, and that has paid off for them. And presently, whilst their league form isn't at the level that maybe we've come to see in the championship, I don't think they'll be overly concerned. However, later in the year, they still have plenty of quality to come in there. There's still a lot of players that aren't playing, that have been playing in previous seasons, and I think they're still obviously the team to beat.
And what do you want to see from this Tyrone team on Saturday?
I think the big thing is they'll be looking for is a huge reaction to last week and last week's performance. And as I said to you before, certainly they were in the game against Galway with about 10-15 minutes to go. And as I mentioned to you before, how things fell away. And Tyrone will like to address that this week, and they will certainly be doing that through their video work. But I think from the point of view of Tyrone, they could target this first 10-15 minutes that Dublin have been having their slow starts and look to exploit that. And looking around the field, I think, and many times when you come up against Dublin with the occasion, the Tyrone players need to rise to that occasion, and they need to bring that bit of an edge to it and not allow Dublin time in the ball to pick their passes or catch, to turn take their scores. They need to be living in their pockets and not allowing them to dictate what's happening around. And hopefully with the crowd, the atmosphere, the numbers that are expected to be there, that Tyrone players can to raise themselves to that. And with a lot of the young lads and younger players coming in there and maybe getting that experience, they'll respond well to that, and I've no doubt that they'll bring that.
Just a final thing, Dan. I mean, it's a bit of a strange and worrying time at the moment with the coronavirus, but I just happened to look at your Wikipedia page before we started this conversation, and the reason I bring up the coronavirus is back in 2001, you had a McRory Cup final that was interrupted by the foot and mouth disease. What was your recollections of that?
That's right. I was 6th year, and the first day we played St Michael's in Enniskillen, and we were, I think it was 9 points up at half time, and St Mick's came back and drew the game towards the end. And following the drawn game, obviously the anticipation for the replay, but at that stage the foot and mouth was going around, and Tyrone had been impacted very much so by it, because I'm still waiting for the replay to be played. St Mick's went on to represent Ulster in the Hogan Cup, and it was disappointing because we're probably a game that we left behind us that day, and certainly it's one of those games that sticks out in the memory that we weren't able to complete. And also remember playing for Tyrone Miners that year. We were competing in the league, and 2001, and we were unable to complete or take part in the league because again of the foot and mouth, to stop the spread of it. Although coming from the town, I would have known very little about it, but certainly it was something that affected us a lot. And in 2001, in fact, with the league and us not being in the league, it probably give us more time to spend together and train. And we went on then to win the All-Ireland in 2001 with the likes of Sean Kavanagh, Kieran McRory, Paul Quinn, Marty Penrose, Dermy Carlin. And these lads went on, and John Devine obviously went on then to represent the seniors. But that was a special memory from 01, but not to replay the McRory was disappointing. But listen, these things happen. That's just life, isn't it?
What can you do? You've been very good with your time, Joe. Thanks very much.
No bother. Thank you, Shane.